The information provided is not a substitute for legal and other professional advice where the facts and circumstances warrant. People should always consult their own legal or other professional advisors and discuss the facts and circumstances that apply to their specific circumstances. The information shared on Ask the Landlord is for educational purposes only.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Ask the Landlord with your favorite landlord, Albert Dweck. I'm Melissa. I'm one of Albert's producers and a former New York City renter. And together, we're going to be asking this landlord some questions. All right, Albert, today's question is, what are some ways to pay the monthly rent of an apartment in New York City?
That's a good question, Melissa. It's very practical. I could tell you some advice and some experience that I have regarding that. And it's a simple question, but I think from a renter's perspective, you want to make sure you're paying the rent in a way that it gets to the landlord safely and effectively, right? And that you can document that you paid it. Okay. So I have a rule here that we don't take cash. Okay. We don't take cash because it's mostly a safety issue, right? For the people paying the money and for the people receiving the money. And then secondarily, a lot can happen to cash and you can't get it back, right? So we avoid cash here. We don't take cash as a rule because I don't want my people, you can imagine someone paying $2,000 or something like that in cash. It's a lot of money for someone to carry around, and then we have to get it to the bank, and it's not so safe. And then it's like, if not, imagine you had 10 people paying rent. So then you have $20,000 in cash. It's like, it very quickly creates a security question, a problem. Of course it's fast and effective, but it's not very safe. So we don't take cash for that reason. And, if that does happen where you're paying cash, make sure you get a receipt and, that you have a copy of the receipt and you save it and all that, right? Which leads to the next point of when you pay the rent, you want it to be trackable in case it gets lost. So writing a check is always an effective method because you have a record of it. Your bank has a record of it. You could track it. I know there's a lot of paper involved there, but, that's one way. Another way is, and I know people get paid in cash. So for those people that paid in cash, they could get money orders, and money orders are trackable and instantly available to the landlord. So some people who do get paid in cash or want to pay the rent in cash go and get a money order and then save the receipts for the money order. And then we've had people that lose money orders and have to make a claim to get reimbursed for that. It takes a long time, but when I mean, like, 30 days, 60 days. So money orders. These days, though, many landlords have what we have, which is some kind of resident portal, where a resident can log in and pay the rent electronically, or pay via Zelle, or, we don't take Venmo here, but I imagine some people do take some other, kinds of electronic payment. I still have people that come to my office and drop off checks, and I tell them, you don't have to do that,
Right.
But they come and they feel better about, writing a check and making sure they get it and then getting a receipt. But a lot of landlords do have, like these resident portals for payment where, you could see your rental account online like a bank, and then you could see, how much is applied, how, you could pay there, and it's pretty easily done. Yes.
Can you pay with a credit card on that portal?
Yeah. I don't see that rent is payable by credit card a lot because people can dispute the charges, and there's usually we don't have that I think, on our portal. And then, this is like, I'm going to tell you one of the myths about landlords that people think, and that's the truth, is like not the case. So, okay. So
I'm ready.
I'm going to start with the end, and then I'll explain. So, Melissa, one of the things I want to tell you is like how much, like, people think landlords are rich and everything. So it's important to understand. I mean, one of the reasons people don't take credit cards is because they charge so much money, right? So the question is, how much do you think a credit card charges, a credit card service?
I think it's anywhere from like 2 to 3% usually.
Right, let's say 3%, 2 to 3% or less. That's fine, but in the range of 3%, right? So now you say, okay, well, that's not a big deal, right? On the one hand, but most people think that landlords are rich and that, oh, they have so much money. And the answer is that really, at the end of the day, after paying all the expenses of the building and the mortgage, landlords get like pennies on the dollar, right? So you don't realize that. So out of $1, I think the average is like 6 cents or something. So if you give up half of that for getting to a credit card company, it's a lot, right? So,
right. So we need this podcast to take off.
Yes, we do. We need to.
Right.
No, but the point of that is that I think one of the points of the podcast is to always think about both sides of the equation, and that really we're after bridging the gap between landlords and tenants, and some things that may be good and convenient for one party would not be good and convenient for another. So I think it's up to both sides to make it easy for each other and be considerate. So, one of the things we try to do here is to make it easy for people to pay the rent. Be communicative, take as many forms of payment as we can, but also ensuring that the forms of payment don't get lost. They're easily trackable, and that they provide for the security of the payment and the people that pay them and receive them. So,
right. Is there any fees when you're doing, I guess it's like a wire transfer on your portal? Does the renter have to pay any fees per transaction?
usually when I pay my own rent, I have to pay a fee to wire, but that's what I pay instead of um, writing a check, sometimes because it takes too long to write a check, or it's easier for me to send a wire, something like that. So sometimes I do that way. But most often, I think these days you could send a check from your bank for free or for whatever, as part of your like bill pay service. So, and a lot of times those get paid electronically. I mean, I'm paying my daughter's college rent by Zelle, so I mean, that's
by Zelle every month.
Yeah.
Which is great because Zelle is trackable. You can see all your transactions.
Absolutely. It's instantaneous.
Yeah, I wish we had Zelle back in the day.
Yeah. So those are much better. And, and since we both grew up, Melissa, I'm putting you in my bracket of sort of age, maybe. No.
I'm 33.
I'm 49.
All right.
Things evolved a lot. Like we used to carry cash around as kids because that was the way to pay. I mean, you didn't have a credit card and you had to have cash on you at all times.
Right.
These days, kids, they don't have cash. Like they're bumping their phone, to pay for stuff.
Oh,
so,
yeah.
And I rarely myself carry much cash. So it's like it's all about convenience of not having cash. So, I think, and again, a reminder is that the real estate business tends to be more archaic with respect to technology. And
we'll talk about that. That's really interesting.
Yeah. And it's it's an evolution. But there's a lot of ways today to pay your rent. And I would say just find one that's safe, secure, and trackable. And in case it gets lost, that you could be covered in case, and you can recover it somehow. So, and cash tends not to have those protections. So
if you're thinking about renting an apartment in New York City, you definitely need a checking account, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Right.
I mean, I would say, yeah.
I mean,
sure.
yeah, think about it though. People like right out of college, let's say, like they might not have a checking account. So that's one of those preliminary steps you would need to take when moving to
Yeah.
New York.
That's a good point. I mean, if you don't have a
Yeah.
checking account, you'd probably time to get one.
Right. All right. So that's really great. There's a few options to pay your rent in New York. I like that. I never had a portal. I was one of those who wrote checks and mailed them. And then when I moved to
that's fine. A lot of my tenants do that.
Yeah. And then when I moved to Pittsburgh and I rented, I wrote the checks and I would sometimes deliver them because I didn't trust the mail.
See,
So, yeah.
I got people still deliver checks to me all the time.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
People are in their ways, and sometimes sometimes change is very good, and sometimes if you're getting that check, it doesn't matter.
Yeah. Yeah. It's nice to, and also I think it's nice to see people. Like sometimes you have a relationship. Like, I have a few people that come in and drop off checks. It's nice to see them. Honestly.
Wow, that's great.
Nice.
I would love to have that happen during a podcast episode.
Oh,
come on, Barbara.
Sometimes. Okay.
All right. Thank you so much, Albert. That was really informative. Thank you.
You got it. My pleasure.
For more episodes, please subscribe to Ask the Landlord on your favorite podcast platform. We'd appreciate it if you left a review on Apple Podcasts. If you'd like to watch the show, check out our Ask the Landlord YouTube channel. If you have a question for Albert, feel free to contact him on Instagram at Ask the Landlord and check out his TikTok at Ask the Landlord. Bridging the gap between landlords and tenants, this has been Ask the Landlord. Thanks for listening.